Hi guys, welcome. My name's Jack. I'm going to give you a quick tutorial here on how to tear down your Alfa 155 wing mirror. So we've got an example here which has been sent to me by one of the club members. Thank you very much to Richard. This has seen better days. It's had a couple of repairs. You can see there's somebody's put a steel plate in here just to hold the two parts of the bracket together. The casing's been glued on. Hot melt glue around the edges, and it's had quite an impact here where it's cracked. So we're going to take this one apart and just show you how to replace the internals. We're not too worried about the cosmetics, but we'll just go and replace the mechanical parts inside. So I have a 3D printing service. It's called Cloverleaf 3D. I had these brackets scanned, the originals anyway, scanned a couple of years ago. And since I've been able to make new parts using nylon material, which is infused with 15% carbon fibre. This is the latest design, and so if you bought a kit, you'd receive a side bracket like so, and also the internal housing bracket, which goes behind the mirror and secures it to the upright here. And along with that, you'll also receive a custom bolt to bolt the two parts together that has a hole in it, which allows you to feed the wires through, or the adjuster cables, depending if your mirror is manual or electric. So regarding the upright, it's pretty solid. These things are very strong. It has a certain degree of flex to it, but not too much. And it allows just for a bit more flexibility compared to the original. Now, the originals, once they have one hit, they basically had it, and this one's got a nice ring to it, where it's cracked just along this upright here. So, yeah, out with the old and in with the new. So, we're going to start with taking the mirror apart. Tools you're going to need. You can probably start off with some sort of plastic pry bar. I can print and send you one of these if you wish. This is just 3D printed. Just allow you to separate the two parts because they're clipped along here. There is a screw too, but it's probably long gone. And then you'll also need a screwdriver and probably a couple of little screwdrivers just to separate some of the parts. The most difficult part of this is getting the old bolt out. So the old bolt here, it will be screwed in here, and it's been screwed in there for 30 years. It's going to be probably rock solid, and you have to find some way to shock that out. This one came out and it stripped the thread slightly, so you could expect it to do the same when you take yours apart. Put that there. You'll also to get the bolt out, recommend an impact driver. It's a 19mm socket, and that allows you to shock the bolt out. We'll see how we get on with this one later on. If you don't have that, then you could use a 19mm wrench and a hammer, and you should be able to get into it as long as you can hold the bracket. If you can hold it in a vise, just on the lugs here, you should be able to get enough purchase on it to shock the bolt out. Anyway, we'll see how we go on with this one later. Alright, first thing to do, there will be in the top left hand corner of the mirror, there should be a screw in there. Unfortunately, ours is long gone on this one. You won't be able to see down there terribly easily, but if we just shine the torch in there, yeah, we can see it's missing. Okay, so if that's missing, that's part one done. There's also a screw down here, which you can see the plastic is missing for that to screw through. That'll be holding this part onto the painted part here. But again, it's doing nothing in this case. It's just going straight through to nothing. Now we've got to get the two halves apart. So this will be easier said than done. Okay, part one done. Internally, this one's not too bad. It's missing any wiring, hasn't got any adjustment cables, so simply the mirror is being set by just pushing the mechanism into place whilst it's on the car. Next part of the challenge will be to get this bolt out. So I'm just going to try with the impact driver here. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll take it to the garage and clamp it in the vise. Let's give it a go. Yeah, we got lucky. That may have been out before, given how easy that was. The previous one I did just took forever, so, and it needed the hammer as well as the impact driver. Okay, that's off. Put that to one side. Okay, next part of this is to remove these two screws. Remove this part now, seeing as we need to recycle that for the kit. And that'll make removing the bracket from the housing a lot easier. I should just fall away. Okay, we'll come back to that. And there's our broken piece. You can see it's had a bit of a life. It's got a fairly strong repair, but it's just misaligned it. But it probably did for its purpose. So yeah, we're going to get rid of this and install the new one. So if you've got an electric mirror and you need to release the connector block before you can pull the wires through, the way to do it is with a skinny screwdriver and just push the screwdriver down into the connector and push it into one of the pins and just lever it up slightly and then pull the cable and it will come out like so. So after you've done that, you'll need to push back down the little tab so it will go back in and stay there next time on the rebuild. But let's push that down ever so slightly. A little bit further. Okay, and then that'll make good connection when you go to put it back in the block later on. I'll put a wiring diagram up so that you can see which wire goes where. That's in there, nice and solid now. Okay, that's only if you've got an electric mirror. If you've got a manual one, you'll be feeding through the cables as part of the rebuild. If you're looking to replace the internal housing bracket, you're going to have to release that by undoing these 4 screws from the other side. In order to do that, you need to remove the mirror. So this one is mostly smashed to bits, so I'm not too worried about breaking it, but the way to do it is these can be clipped on and they can be double-sided taped on. So if you've got both, I'm going to recommend heating it up with a hairdryer or just gently with a heat gun, just to soften the glue, and then you can start sort of trying to pry it away a little bit. Again, I'd use a plastic prying bar with this, just very gently, just start trying to bring it away. They're clipped in 4 places, so even if you're going to use a screwdriver, not much more risk of cracking it, but just try and get in each corner and you'll see in a moment. Fortunately, glass is replaceable, they are available, so if you do break it, it's not the end of the world. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this one is double-sided taped or foam taped, and it's actually clipped in several places. This one, you got all these clips here securing it onto the motor mechanism. Okay, now that's out, we can see the 4 screws that we need to get to undo the bracket. So we'll just undo those. So it's a good idea at this point to disconnect the mechanism as well, because that will allow the bracket to come out from the housing easier. So push that there. I'll get a skinnier screwdriver than we had previously. Something with a finer point. And we'll just undo those. Okay, lift down the mechanism. If you still had the wires attached, you can get at them from behind here and just push the levers away and pull the connector out. In some models you might find the connections a little bit tight to get the wire out, so yeah, pulling the motor first would be a good idea, and you can get to the wires at the top here. Okay, there's our bracket. This one's still in good condition, no issues there, no cracks. It sounds solid. So yeah, we can go ahead and use that again. So you may want to have a look inside the mechanism if your motor wasn't working before, but you think the electrical connections were okay. We can just open it up and have a look, see what's going on inside. So once the 4 screws are out, just pop the lid off. You'll find this piece loose here. That's just a little spacer sitting on top of where the connection goes in. So that will just come off, and it just has 2 little holes in it to locate onto the pins of the contacts. So you can just push that back in there. And then once you're looking in here, just have a look at, make sure the grease is spread around nice and evenly. It's probably gone a little bit crusty by now, but it seems to be okay on this one. And just, yeah, reapply the grease. You can replace if you wish. And just make sure everything's seated nicely. As long as everything's where it should be, and it looks more or less like this, then you should be okay. I'll put a link up, I'll put a picture up of a example of how these can go wrong. Sometimes this little arm here can come out, and then it's not making contact with the gears, so it won't adjust properly. So yeah, just make sure everything's seated. It looks good. Now you see here I've just pushed the mirror inwards, and it's pushed that gear up there. So I'm just going to bring that back down, push that back into place. There's not much holding it in, so just a case of being careful there. Okay, and we've got the worm gear here. Make sure that's central on the actual gear itself. Okay, if we're happy that's more or less okay, we'll put the lid back on. Making sure that little spacer there is there. Yeah, I'll put the 4 screws back in. So the rebuild process goes something like this. We'll start with the bolt and the spring washer. This spring washer has been ground down a little bit just to allow it to sit inside the printed side part. So we'll put the bolt through there. Just make sure the washer's sitting flat, as flat as it will allow you. Okay, that's good. That's sitting on the spring washer nice and flat. And then we can turn it over, and we're going to want to put the flat plate that you took off the old mirror onto this one. Just being careful that you get the orientation right. The part that's sitting higher there needs to go in this orientation on the mirror. So if I put the mirror kind of flat like so, we can press that into place. Once that's in place, you can set that aside. Just for the moment, we'll pick up the upright. And here we need to put in the indexing plate. This part that you've taken from the old mirror needs to go onto here. And there's some of them, there's a little notch at the top, so make sure that is at the top when you press it into place. It's the part that stops you over rotating the mirror when you fold it up or down. At this point, I recommend threading the wires through. It's much easier to do it now. So we'll take our wiring loom where we remove the plug. First off, thread them through the bolt. Then we'll thread them through the upright housing. And then finally through the bracket itself. Once they're through the nut, then thread them through the side of the upright bracket. Okay, at this point we can then screw the upright housing to the upright bracket. And then you can bring the two halves together, just pulling through the cables. So the next job, we can put the motor back in. This only goes in one way due to this shape here. There's a cutout on the mirror bracket. There's 3 screws for this, 1, 2, 3. So pop that in. Okay, once the motor's in, you can then secure the loom plug back in. On this example, the cutout's been put on the wrong side, but it will still fit. It just means putting through the wires a little bit longer. On your bracket, the cutout will be just here, and the motor will be rotated just slightly, so the plug would actually go in here. But on this version, just for example, we'll plug it back in right here. And next job, we can place the housing over, or the top housing. It's a little bit fiddly to get it over the lugs of the motor, but it is possible. Then we can put our 4 screws back in to hold it in place. I'm just going to put on the mirror cover. Usually you'd hope to get 2 screws to secure this together. One to go there, one to go there, but these have snapped off probably a long time ago. I'd recommend putting a strip of double-sided tape along the top here and another on the bottom, and then pressing the 2 halves together. Or you can use a glue like's been used on this one, but I think it will dry out too much and probably come apart again. So anyway, that is a rough guide on how to rebuild your 155 mirror.